off this list, in our number 10 spot we have Tsingy National Park. Tsingy National Park is located on the western edge of Madagascar, but today I really want to talk about two large geographical features in the park, which are Big Tsingy and Little Tsingy. Tsingy can be translated into English as roughly where one cannot walk barefoot, and when you see it, you'll realize that this name makes a lot of sense. These rock formations are plateaus that have deep ruts cut into them by the groundwater, which has left them totally unable to be walked on or through. This whole area is incredibly fascinating, and it is the home to many endemic species because of its very unusual geomorphology. Some of these species are found only within extremely small areas within the Tsingys because the summit, slope, and base of one limestone needle will all form completely different ecosystems, which is unbelievable. The Tsingys are a perfect example of what happens when humans just leave a place alone and let nature and the earth just exist. It would be an amazing place to go and explore, but because of the nature of the limestone needles, we just can't, and that truly is probably for the best. In our number 9 spot today we have Cape Melville. Cape Melville is located in Australia, and it is the home to one of the lost worlds of the earth. It truthfully wasn't discovered until recently, and that is due to the surrounding wall of granite boulders that are hundreds of feet tall. But inside this stone wall is an amazing, mysterious, and uncharted rainforest, which is the coolest thing. Because of the more recent discovery and the lack of exploration, this area has been preserved in its natural state, which is something that is not easily found on our super populated planet. This place is only accessible by helicopter and has only seen one major scientific exploration, but on this one adventure at least 3 new species were found. I'm sure there will be further research of the area to learn about all of the endemic species that live there and to study how they evolved to fit in this interesting ecosystem. In our number 8 spot today we have the Star Mountains of Papua New Guinea. This massive mountain range is located in Papua New Guinea, and although we of course know about it, much of the area remains completely untouched by humans. This area is thought to be one of the wettest places on Earth, as it sees more than 10,000 millimeters of rain every year. At that point, you wonder why they're still measuring in millimeters, but hey, I'm not a weatherman. Due to the rain and just how torrential the downpour is, there isn't a spot in the entire range that can house a weather station. There was an attempt made to explore the range in 1959 by a man named Jan Sneap, who wanted to try and map out the area, and it was slightly successful, but not without struggle. During the expedition they had 2 helicopters, but due to the altitudes one of them ended up crashing, and they were forced to rely on their own manpower from then on. While this of course would suggest that humans have of course at some point visited the mountain range, as I previously mentioned, there are most definitely areas that remain unvisited by humans, and it's probably for the best if we leave it that way. In our number 7 spot today we have the Doong Cave. This cave is located in Vietnam, and it is the largest cave in the world. The name means the mountain river cave, and it was created somewhere between 2 to 5 million years ago from river water eroding away the limestone. In some areas of the cave the ceiling collapsed, which has created natural skylights. These areas have allowed many plants and trees to grow, and it has definitely increased the vegetation. The cave is around 9 kilometers long, and it is home to the tallest known stalagmites in the world, with these mineral deposits getting up to around 70 meters tall. There was a plan to install a cable car through the cave to create a tourist attraction, but thankfully those plans were cancelled due to the potential harm that it would cause the environment, which I think most of us can agree was for the best. In our number 6 spot today we have Mount Bosavi. This mountain is located in the Southern Highlands province of Papua New Guinea, but it is actually the collapsed cone of an extinct volcano. The volcano actually collapsed to create a crater that is around 4 kilometers wide and 1 kilometer deep. There isn't a lot that is known about this area, but in 2009 an international team of scientists went down there on an expedition that was entirely filmed by the BBC Natural History Unit. It is believed that the crater was created around 200,000 years ago, and during the crew's time time researching the area, there were around 40 new species that were uncovered, as the crater has its very own fascinating isolated ecosystem. Who knows what more may be down there just waiting for us to uncover. In our number 5 spot today we have the Movile Cave. This cave is located in Romania, just a few kilometers from the coast of the Black Sea, and it was first discovered in 1986. This cave has been isolated from the outside world for millions of years, and basically everything that goes on inside of it is different than what we're used to. The cave life is not based on photosynthesis and rather chemosynthesis. The level of oxygen in the cave is around a third of what is normally found in the atmosphere, and of the 48 species found in the cave, 33 of them were endemic, meaning they can't be found anywhere else on Earth. It is just crazy that this is possible. For 5.5 million years, creatures on this planet could be living an entirely different life than the rest of us inside a previously undiscovered place. It's absolutely fascinating. In our number 4 spot today we have Point Nemo. You know when you take a road trip and you have to stop somewhere to pee and it's always like a random town and you're like, wow, we're really out here in the middle of nowhere right now. Well, those random towns have nothing on Point Nemo. This is the most remote location on Earth. It's officially known as the oceanic pole of inaccessibility because it is the furthest point away from land. This area is surrounded by more than 1,000 miles of ocean in each direction. There's obviously no humans who live even close to Point Nemo, which is why it is called that in the first place, Nemo being Latin for no one. While this may not be a scientifically impossible place, it's just one fact that is honestly shocking to me, and it is what got this place a spot on this list. This location is so isolated that the closest people to Nemo aren't even on this Earth. Since the inhabited area closest to the point is over 1,000 miles away, the humans aboard the International Space Station are way closer than anyone on land. That truly is just wild. Kind of sounds like a dream, also kinda sounds like a nightmare. In our number 3 spot today we have Kawah Ijen. Located in Indonesia, this is one of the most remarkable and interesting places on Earth. Firstly, this active volcano emits hot, flammable, sulfurous gases. These gases ignite as they enter the oxygen-rich atmosphere of Earth, and this causes them to burn with a stunning blue flame. Further scientific processes also allows there to be a flow of molten sulfur that is also that same striking blue color. At night is when you really get quite a show from this coloring, as it quite literally looks like a flow of blue lava. The other incredible thing about this location is that there is a 1 kilometer wide caldera that is filled with turquoise blue water. The water color, while it looks gorgeous, is a result of the extreme acidity as well as the high concentration of dissolved metals. It is an astonishing place to look at, and it really is magnificent. Just don't touch it. In our number 2 spot today we have Lake Nyos. Lake Nyos is located in Cameroon, and it is different from any regular old lake because of the volcanic crater that it sits in. The magma floor releases carbon dioxide into both the water and the surrounding air, making it a less than ideal place to live and breathe. Usually the CO2 just dissipates into the air, mostly harmlessly, but in 1986 there was a limnic eruption that caused catastrophe. A limnic eruption is very rare, but it's what happens when dissolved carbon dioxide suddenly erupts from lake waters, which then goes on to form a gas cloud. This resulting gas cloud is extremely dangerous and is capable of displacing the oxygen in the area, which of course is lethal to any living thing there, which is exactly what happened in 1986. This limnic eruption caused a noxious cloud of more than 1 million tons of CO2. This ended up taking the lives of the 1,700 people in the area, as well as the 3,500 livestock, which made it the first known large-scale asphyxiation caused by a natural event. Despite the threat of another eruption as well as the lake's weakening walls that could result in a massive flood, people have resettled this area around the lake. I'm not gonna lie, I wouldn't risk it, which makes me wonder why these people chose here, and I'm sure that there's gotta be a reason. In our number 1 spot today we have Surtsey Island. This island was born in 1963. By that, I mean it emerged from the sea in that year just off of the coast of Iceland after 4 years of being formed by an undersea volcano. A brand new island. What could we possibly do with that? While I'm sure humans could find 1,000,001 ways to ruin it, surprisingly, we decided not to do that at all. Instead, this island was protected in order to allow scientists to study how new ecosystems form and what happens when there's no human involvement. This means that those who are permitted to go to the island have some very strict rules to adhere to, and it's not like just anyone is allowed to go. One of these rules is no seeds and no using the facilities on the island. That last rule is because one day when scientists found a tomato growing on the island, they were quite confused as to how. Turns out somebody had gone number 2 not too long before, and thus a new poop tomato was grown from the ground.
Number 10. Medici Chapels. This one begins with an epic discovery. Back in 1975, the director of the Medici Chapels Museum in Florence, Italy, he was searching for a new exit route for visitors. He was trying to expand whilst controlling traffic a little more. We love that. We love big moves. Now, in doing so, the director stumbled across this trap door beneath a closet. And there also lied a few clues on the walls. There were sketches and drawings, the style of which seemed to belong to one Leonardo da Vinci. Not a bad find at all, my friends. This room was immediately closed for renovations. It was held a secret until 2020, so for many this is still widely unknown. I hope you've learned a thing or two already on this list. We're not even at number 9 yet, and you already know about some ancient trapdoors in Italy. There you go. Number 9. Metro 2. During the time where Stalin was in power, it's said that he instructed that an underground secret transport system would be built. It was known as Metro 2. This mysterious underground system is said to connect different administrative institutions, and it's even rumored that it contains apartments and different technical rooms. It's an underground city, basically. I don't know how to tell you that. It's sort of like a secret escape tunnel for high-level officials, right? Now, of course, it's completely blocked off to outsiders or the general public, and while the Moscow Metro administration denies that these tunnels even exist, there was an urban exploration group back in 1994 that claimed to have found the entrance. At this point in time, only one metro exists. On paper. We'll go find the other one, right? We can go find it. Some flashlights, maybe a spare weekend. We'll get to the bottom of it. Number 8. Whaley House. Located in San Diego and built in 1857, the Whaley House is an example of, why you don't build your house on cursed land. The site that this family home was built on was also the location of San Diego's first public gallows. Yeah, what a fun fact that is. Nice, rich history here. And apparently right after moving in, Thomas Whaley said he himself could hear the footsteps of Yankee Jim Robinson, who had previously lost his life in the same gallows only 4 years prior. After the family had settled in, they experienced a bunch of family tragedies, most of which actually happened inside of the house, hence the, cursed land aspect. As of today, the Whaley House is now a museum, and apparently the family members continue to haunt said site. Number 7. Lake Acid. Nice, a nice acid lake to cool off. It's also referred to as the gateway to hell. Rightfully so. The Danakil Depression is made up of boiling hot ponds that release chlorine and sulfur gases into the air. So you don't even have to take a dip in this acid lake. Just standing around it can simply kill you. So where does something like this come from, besides science fiction horror films? How does a lake of acid just come to be? What did we do to you to deserve an acid lake, my friend? This horrifying landscape is the result of 3 continental plates being torn apart. Yeah, it's part of the East African Rift System. So not 1, but 2 active volcanoes surround the Danakil Depression, hence the, bubbling magma lurking below the dry landscape. That explains it. 2 volcanoes. It's one of the hottest places on Earth for a reason. Active hydrothermal ozones aren't new per se, that's what Yellowstone National Park is, but you need a gas mask to go to this park, so we'll stick to Yellowstone for now. Number 6. British Museum's adult room. Better clean your eyes after this one. Some dirty stuff coming in. The British Museum, they have this long lost adult themed room, and it's exactly what you think when I say adult themed, right? The museum itself dates back to the mid-1700s, and its initial opening, the museum only let 10 people in at a time. Now, of course, it holds many more every day, but some collections, not everybody can handle. It's not for everybody's eyes. In the Victorian era, the museum had a secret room for obscene objects, or objects that are deemed perverse. There's just a part of a temple wall that shows the dirty deed, just intimate ancient yoga, just carved in, right? Not going anywhere. In the collection includes a Roman terracotta lamp that depicts a naked woman on a crocodile. There's also a cabinet of obscene objects, which is just a cool name. Sounds like a Harry Potter book, doesn't it? Number 5. Flesh-eating beetle room. Okay, enough talk about ancient butts. Let's move on to some weird stuff again, shall we? In Chicago's Field Museum, this one's chock full of secret rooms. I feel sick immediately just reading about this. The Field Museum uses hide beetles to clean its specimens. Real beetles to eat the stuff. Yeah, in order to get each of these carcasses ready for showtime, these beetles are on the clock. They're business oriented. They come in just a few hours, a small rodent can be completely cleaned. Nothing but bones left. How gross is that? Imagine this is where Peter Parker got his powers. Ugh, that'd be a different movie. Or Night at the Museum. That would also be a very different movie if it took place in here, in the old beetle room. Number 4, Vatican secrets. The archives, first of all, they're 53 miles long. There's around 35,000 volumes of catalog, secret catalog. The Vatican's secret archives are no joke. They're very real, but in order to see them for yourselves, it's gonna take some time. A lot of time. We don't have any time, really. The codexes aren't public, hence why I'm including them. Only highly respected scholars can access it after they're 75 years old, so you gotta wait a few birthdays. Their official purpose is to house the Holy See's official paperwork, and of course, it's a treasure trove of anything and everything related to the Pope, as well as these long-lost ancient documents, because where else do you safely store a letter from Mary Queen of Scots? The archives, that's where. Dudes are out here hucking cakes at the Mona Lisa. Yeah, we're gonna keep ancient notes locked up, I think. Humans can't be trusted, at least till after you're 75, and then it's like, okay, go take a look. There's also a secret room that contains the 200-foot Tower of the Winds, only accessible by these secret archives, so yeah. There's a lot of cool shit down there. Number 3, hidden Mickeys. I had some hidden Mickeys myself growing up, but these ones are a little bit different. We'll make it a little brighter now before we get to our top 3. Here we go. But Walt Disney himself said, "I only hope that we never lose sight of one thing, that it was all started by a mouse." I got to thinking, which mouse? You know, Stuart Little, the mouse with an ear on its back, that's iconic, or Mickey Mouse, the iconic 3 circles, right? If you're visiting Disney Orlando anytime soon, first of all, have fun, mad FOMO. Second of all, keep an eye open for the hundreds of Mickey Mouse symbols. They're hidden on the walls, the floors, paintings. It's actually kind of creepy. No one knows how many there are. In total, there's rumored to be over 1,000 hidden Mickeys. How many did you find? Maybe like 4 or 5, I bet. Probably hard to see. Number 2, Death Valley. Okay, and we're back into the bad stuff. We love it. With a name like Death Valley, it's gonna be pretty bad, right? There's a Death Valley in Zelda. That one's pretty bad. That one sucks. A lot of curses there. Death Valley sits on the California-Nevada border. It's known for, of course, its extreme heat. It's one of the hottest places on Earth. The only desert on the planet that comes close to the same level of heat is in the Middle East and Africa. It's like a different planet, Death Valley. It's horrible. Not a lot of people know just how bad it is. In July 2018, it was considered the hottest place the Earth has ever seen. For 4 days in a row, the average temperature hit as high as 127 degrees Fahrenheit. For all you Canadians, that's 52 degrees Celsius. Imagine it's 52 outside. Not even close right now and I'm already sweating. Yuck. Never visit Death Valley. So many curses. You'll sweat and turn into bones. Animals, carcasses, not good. And finally, number 1, the secret bowling alley. Okay, we'll end this list on a fun note because it's the weekend, okay? It's Saturday, we're all out here having a good time. The Frick Collection resides on the former home of Henry Frick. This is on Manhattan's Upper East Side. A handful of you have probably seen it or have been there. We have like the CN Tower and an aquarium. I'm like, we don't have any cool museums. This collection is a museum in itself. It contains paintings, sculptures, furniture, all historical, mind you, and all made from European artists as far back as the 13th century. The mansion itself is rather new. That was built in 1913, and of course it was also used as the Frick's family resident at one point. A rich family in the early 1900s. Nice, you already know there's a lot of secret rooms in there. But what was hiding in there? Apparently some fun rich family stuff, not a lot of curses. Like for example, a 2-lane bowling alley that was built in 1914. That's fun, we like that. Or a secret billiards room. Again, we like that as well. A wood shop, a little creepy, we'll kind of skip past that one. But how about this tiny diner? So good, we love secret stuff. I don't know, any secret? That sounds a little hollow there. I'm gonna check that out after work. Something's afoot back there. Kicking off our list at number 10, Secret Cinderella Suite. Cinderella's castle at Disney World. Of course, it's the main attraction. Without that castle, it would just be a Canadian theme park. Of course, the castle is a smaller scale than a real medieval one, so it's a surprise to find out there's actually a real hidden suite in there. And yes, it's quite magical. You can sleep there and probably get bed bugs, I don't know. To get there, you'll need to take a pumpkin carriage elevator. And in the actual suite, you'll find 2 beds and a pull-out couch. Yeah, nothing more enchanting than a pull-out. Who gets that one? Let's draw straws. There's beautiful stained glass windows, a fireplace to keep you warm at night in Florida. But I almost forgot the most important detail. You need to be invited. Yeah, you gotta be important. Can't just buy your way in, right? Can't just get daddy's credit card and fast pass your way in that line. You gotta win a contest or something like that. I don't think I'd want to spend a night there, to be honest. It doesn't look very cozy. It's like one of those cottages you stay at and you're like, I'm scared, I'm really uncomfortable. This is a little too old for me. Number 9. DMZ. Despite what its name says and implies, the Korean Demilitarized Zone is perhaps one of the most militarized places in the entire world. It's like, hey, there's nothing going on here with military stuff. This is the location that marks the separation between North and South Korea, and it was established to serve as a sort of buffer zone between two countries. There are tons of military facilities in this zone, and only high-ranking officials are allowed in. You'll hopefully never see this. This is exactly what led to the creation of the Civilian Control Line, which is a line that created an additional buffer zone to the Demilitarized Zone, which is meant to further restrict access to any civilians or unauthorized personnel. So they added more of a do not enter. It's thick. You'll never see this. Number 8. Surtsey Island. This island was born in 1963, and by that I mean literally. It emerged from the sea in that year just off the coast of Iceland after 4 years of being formed by an undersea volcano. Yeah, brand new island. Nice. Happy birthday, I guess? What do we do here? What could we possibly do with a new island? Well, I'm sure humans could find 1,000,001 ways to ruin it. Like, put another Cinderella Suite in the middle of it probably. And surprisingly, we decided not to do that at all. Instead, this island was protected in order to allow scientists to study how ecosystems form and what happens when there's zero human involvement. That's the whole idea. Yeah, not a bad call, right? This means that those who are permitted to go to the island have some super strict rules to adhere to, right? No touchy-touchy, no spitting, no crying, there's nothing, no one should know that we've ever been here, right? One of these rules is no seeds, okay? And no using the facilities on the island, okay? No taking, okay? You gotta hold it until 6 p.m. Have fun. Don't forget to clock in. That second rule is in place because one day scientists found a tomato growing on the island, and they were quite confused as, how, considering what I just told you. Yeah, it turns out somebody had gone number 2 not too long past, and then, a tomato came out because he had a little seed in his own. Right, you get it. Number 7, Ed and Lorraine Warren's Occult Museum. Okay, heading into Spookyville for this one. If you've seen Annabelle Comes Home, this next one should ring a bell. The character Daniela in the movie, she tries to communicate to a loved one beyond the grave, but in order to do so, she puts on a bracelet from Ed and Lorraine's Occult Museum. It's called a mourning bracelet. It's kind of like the Q-ray bracelet, but does the opposite things. Makes you curse instead of smart. Now, there isn't a mourning bracelet in the real-life Occult Museum, but there is such thing as the Pearls of Death. And those are locked away. Those are very real. Those are lovely too, might I add. These pearls were added to the museum after a woman claimed they were strangling her on its own, which is absolutely terrifying. It's like those candy necklaces that we had growing up, and they'd get tight all of a sudden, you're like, oh my god. The second this poor woman put these pearls on, she needed everybody around her to help yank them from her neck. Now these haunted pearls sit in the Ed and Lorraine Occult Museum. These ones have nothing on Martha Wayne, oh lord. Number 6, Naples' secret adult room. Scandalous Pompeii excavations. Ancient Playboy, here we go, this one's pretty funny. After the eruption of Mount Vesuvius back in 79 AD, the small city of Pompeii was sadly covered in hot ash. The ancient Roman ruins are still being uncovered today, but back in the 1700s, most of the city was excavated for the first time. And the King of Naples got the best of the best, right? First dibs. Most of the contents are now kept in the Archaeological Museum in Naples, but some have to be held in the secret room. Yeah, see, in the past, you had to receive permission from the king to take a peek into this sensual art. There were 30 brothels in Pompeii, so of course, surrounding artwork served as advertisement for said brothels, if anything. Just old drawings or carvings of people intertwined with one another. Yo, I found Dad's stash! Number 5, Svalbard Seed Vault. Deep within a mountain that sits in between Norway and the North Pole sits this vault that is more than 320 feet deep. It's just hidden inside of a mountain, okay? This vault holds a massive collection of seeds. It'd be the worst case for that other island, eh? They're like, no, keep this vault away, please, none of those. The vault that holds these seeds are made to withstand both man-made and natural disasters. And the seeds held inside are meant to be kept safe, so that in the case of sort of, a huge disaster or the end of the world arrives, seeds will be fine. Yeah, we're good, just some watermelon seeds will make it, but we're all doomed. Sick. The seeds kept safe inside would ensure the continuation of a wide variety of diverse food options in case things go south, you know what I mean? The door to this vault is only open a few times a year and just a few people are allowed inside in order to deliver seeds to their shelves. Yeah, just a doomsday vault full of seeds, that's great. Now I'm nervous. Number 4, Snake Island. This island's located in Brazil and it's one of the most dangerous in the entire world. because of the name I just gave you. It's full of snakes. I don't think I have to explain this one. It is thought that Snake Island came to be when the snakes got trapped as a result of the rising sea levels, which then disconnected the island from the mainland, and then all these snakes got stuck here, and now it's just full of snakes. This is so horrible. The reason people aren't allowed to visit is obviously to protect humans who don't want to go and get attacked by thousands of snakes, but also to protect the snakes from thousands of humans, because we're pretty shitty as well. Just like anywhere else in the world, because of the lack of human interference, they're striving. It's actually a healthy, beautiful island. That's what the snakes said, not me. I don't like snakes, but the snakes seem to like it. They're having a great time together. It's like Survivor season 58, just snakes. There's a critically endangered species of snake called a golden lancehead on this island. There's about 4,000 of them, which is of course critical to the species continuing on. So let's not touch it. Let's not poke any snakes. Let them live. As of now, only a few select researchers and the Brazilian Navy, of course, are permitted to go to the island. Number 3, Disney's underground tunnels. Back to Disney, where dreams are made of, or something like that. In a place like Disney, there has to be room for employees to take a breather, right? That much time and character, all those high fives. I mean, I've done mascot work for a theme park before. It's hot, it's sweaty, it's gross. It's not the easiest job, but they're humans too, okay? They need to take breaks, clock in and out, all that jazz. Where does that magic happen, okay? This needs to be away from the public eye, of course. You can't have people watching as Mickey takes his head off to go for a smoke. No way, that's magic is completely ruined at that point. So instead, Disney has these hidden underground tunnels to move around the park without worrying about staying in character or getting caught in large crowds. During the early park days, Walt Disney himself saw a cowboy from Frontierland walking through Tomorrowland, and it just didn't make any sense. He's like, wait a minute, the timeline's here, he's got a hat in space, what? It took him out of the magic, right? More than fair. So he made 392,000 square feet of underground tunnels. And yes, they look as creepy as I'm describing them to be. There's zero magic in these tunnels. I mean, God, can you throw a poster up or something? Number 2, restricted Aboriginal art. While some collections are kept out of sight for museum visitors because they're, extremely scandalous in nature, like one of those. Others are kept in secret rooms out of respect. We don't want people touching or messing with these things. At the National Museum of Australia, David Klaus, senior curator of the museum's Aboriginal programs, he wrote this long report explaining on the choice to hide these artifacts from history and why he does so. David himself has said, quote, "That is the responsibility of museums to respect the cultures they want to depict. The public use of Aboriginal secret and/or sacred objects is not consistent with this responsibility," end quote. He's like, yeah, because they didn't want them to be seen. It's kind of simple. In order to gain access to these restricted Aboriginal projects, these beautiful pearl shell ornaments, all these things, you need permission from traditional Aboriginal custodians. Again, no fast passing on this one. And finally, number 1, North Sentinel Island. Heading over to India, this island is the home of the Sentinelese tribe, one of the most forbidden islands in the world. But why is that? Well, it's located in the Bay of Bengal. North Sentinel Island is about 1,200 kilometers away from India, okay? It's pretty far out. And while most islands are shrinking or coming out of nowhere, this one actually grew back in 2004. The island lifted up a couple of meters during an earthquake, so the west and south sides gained an extra kilometer, which is pretty useful because the inhabitants on this floating cursed island are among the few uncontacted tribes left in the world. They have apparently been there for thousands of years. There's no sign of agriculture or even fire, yet somehow this tribe has continued to thrive. If we try and get close, they try and drive anybody away. In fact, sadly, back in 2006, 2 fishermen lost their lives because they got too close to the island without knowing who was on it. The Indian government didn't roll up to the beach and start interrogating locals and taking names. Hey, who did that? No, instead, it's now forbidden to go to the island. We're just gonna respectfully leave it be. Those are the top 10 secret locations in history you weren't supposed to know about. Part 2. If you want a part 3, I got you. I got some secret shit on a secret USB. Let's do it. Number 10. Washington Monument. This is one of those things that I wish I got to do as a job, like YouTube's fun, but also this is pretty fun too. But again, I have a fear of heights, so there's no way I could physically do this ever. You can go inside the Washington Monument, that's no surprise nor secret. But did you know there's a secret hatch hiding at the very top? In Spider-Man Homecoming, Peter has to save his classmates. They're stuck in the elevator shaft in the monument. Now, in order to reach them before they fall, he has to kick through this tiny window at the very top. He almost doesn't make it. It takes like 3 good Spidey kicks. Turns out he could have crawled 4 feet higher to the top and opened this secret hatch. And then guy could have called it a day, easy. No web fluid nor powers needed, my friends. Also a pretty boring climax. Yeah, you don't need Spider-Man to clean the monument, just people who aren't afraid of heights. Then they pop out of this. They open the hatch and then they just sweep it. I can't even look at this photo, I feel sick to my stomach. Number 9. Secret insect room. Okay, back to the buggy weirdness, here we go. If you're in Liverpool and you love insects, okay, very specific, but I have just the place for you. Inside the World Museum in Liverpool lies a secret room, and inside it contains 1 million insects. Yeah, Michi, just thinking about this room. They're all dead, by the way, unlike the other ones that I mentioned. These ones aren't ripping apart any carcassi. Carcasses? Yeah, carcassi, sounds fun. This collection began back in 1855. The 13th Earl of Derby. He's like, you know what I need? A cupboard full of shiny bugs. Let's start that. Thousands of specimens hide in this room, including the world's largest beetle and moth. So gross. I almost had a little saliva when I said that. It felt really gross saying that. The world's largest beetle. Oh, it's so gross. They're so shiny. Imagine Night at the Museum, but it takes place here at the World Museum in London. Bugs everywhere. Ben Stiller wouldn't make it out. No way. No way in hell. Owen Wilson? Little Owen Wilson? Toast. Number 8. Eiffel Tower apartment. I live on the 11th floor, and let me tell you, way too high. That's like 10 stories higher than I could preferably handle. Like I mentioned earlier, I am not a fan of heights at all. My legs get all shaky. Maybe it's because I'm tall already, I don't know, but it sucks. But this one here gives me a hard time as well. Above the Eiffel Tower, above the main observation deck, when it was completed back in 1889, Gustave Eiffel, the, Mr. Eiffel himself who made the blueprints, he included for himself a sweet little condo at the very top. This 100 square meter room sounds spacey at first, but it was full of gear, the elevator shaft was there, it was kind of like Harry Potter's closet in comparison to the rest of the house, you know what I mean? This room had a kitchen, bathroom, thank God, and a living room. God forbid you open a window though. Papers would be all over the place. Gustave's hair must have been messy all the time. Number 7. Supreme Court basketball court. A court in a court? What is this, Inception? What's going on here? This is the Supreme Court, mainly referred to as the highest court in the land. Back in the 40s, this was the storage room for the courthouse, but over time, it turned into a workout room, being so large, I wouldn't even call that a storage room in the first place, right? But courthouse employees would work out there, and eventually some genius decided to throw up a couple of backboards. So yes, there's a basketball court right above the Supreme Court. Yeah, imagine hearing players' shoes squeaking during a trial. Your Honor, I believe somebody just got juked out. I don't know, that's what it sounds like. Number 6, Trafalgar Square. Come on down to Trafalgar Square. We got tiny police stations. It's a Rick and Morty joke. Little Brits? Come on, that's a great one. Back in 1926, strikes and protests were every other week. It's almost like, increase to labor and a 13% wage cut is a bad thing. Weird, odd. So workers in every industry all went on strike. They stopped working for 9 days, and most of these protests would happen in London's Trafalgar Square. So in order to keep an eye on things without looking like you're, keeping an eye on things in 1926, walking around smacking a bat in your hands, blowing smoke in people's faces, that kind of stuff. They do in Peaky Blinders, yeah, you can't do that. It doesn't really calm a crowd down. So instead, the police built a tiny, secret police station in one of the large light posts. Yeah, they're just hiding in a light post, just ready to tackle someone. Imagine a dog starts peeing on the post and then all of a sudden 15 police officers come out of said light post. I'd be so confused. I'd be confused for the rest of my life. It looks fake. It looks like a little information kiosk. Nope, just a SWAT team inside, ready to go. Number 5, Brooklyn Bridge wine cellar. Here we go. I'm not a wine guy myself, but I respect sommeliers. They all have that cool mustache and like to mansplain to you about grapes. Very, very good job. I like it. I like getting mansplained about what I'm drinking and why I'm drinking it. They have books about wine just stored in their head at all times. It's a very impressive job. They know everything about grapes, and they're also pretty cool. What a dream job. Wine is a lifestyle to many, so if you live in New York City and you're a big fan of Merlot, well, listen up. The Brooklyn Bridge connects Manhattan and Brooklyn, right? It was built in 1883, and at the time, it was the longest bridge in the world, until 1903. Chief Bridge Engineer John A. Roebling, as well as his son, Washington Roebling, cool name, they both worked on the building plans, and in order to help the city financially, after you just spent $15 million on a bridge, they included 2 wine cellars, one on each shore, as well as other chambers that could be rented out. Not a bad gig, not a bad Airbnb if you ask me. The plan worked, and over the following 40 years, wine was stored in the dark, cool granite cellars on both sides. Number 4. Mount Rushmore. When sculptor Gutzon Borglum carefully planned out his designs for Mount Rushmore, the iconic American landmark in South Dakota, he included a hidden room. The room's purpose was to ideally be a time capsule, right? In a titanium vault full of records telling the story of Mount Rushmore's construction and all that American stuff. So it doesn't get lost thousands of years in the future. Now, I think carving presidents' faces into the sacred land of natives was enough, but Sure, let's add a vault. The Hall of Records was meant to be this massive hall with an 800-foot staircase, bronze walls, a massive bronze eagle. He wanted future generations to look at this place in awe as we do like Stonehenge, right? Work began in July 1938, but after a year, the project was put on halt to, you know, focus on the president's first maybe. Let's finish that job before we do the secret vault in the back. Borglum sadly passed away in 1941, so the 70-foot cave that was completed was now the vault. Yeah, not as big or flashy as he wanted in the first place, but still, there is a titanium vault behind the 1,200-pound slab of granite. Number 3. Grand Central Tennis Court. It's kind of hard to mention the Supreme Court without talking about the tennis courts at Grand Central. Yeah, those exist too. Let's do it. In the early 1800s, trade and banking fueled the city, specifically via railroad. Both freight and passenger. It was booming, right? We love trains, gotta get those train bonds. So come 1871, Grand Central now opens up, but the Vanderbilt Tennis Club opened in 1965. It wasn't even tennis either. This room had also been a recording studio, an art gallery. It hosted breakdancing, boxing, double Dutch tournaments, you name it. If you ever see a sweaty guy walk out of a janitor's closet with a bunch of tennis balls, go in there, go poke around a bit. Something's going on. It's like when Spider-Man comes out of the closet in Spider-Man 2 with all the pizzas. Nobody asks questions. They're like, hey, where'd that guy just come from? Where'd all this delicious pizzas come from? Number 2, cursed music box. Okay, we gotta include another horrifying element from the Warren Occult Museum. We all love that in the other parts, so let's continue it. The Perrin family music box. Remember this? Director James Wan wanted to use the music box in the first film, in The Conjuring, because mirrors and creepy tones make for great suspense, of course. But also, this was a real haunted artifact from the real house. Today, the box is safely stored in the Warren's Occult Museum, alongside other items that look more or less normal upon first glance. So then you get close and your soul becomes possessed. You know, they're all haunted, never go in this room. This part in the movie actually scared the shit out of me. Any mirror scene, I can't do it. I just end up eating my shirt. And finally, number 1. Mayan underworld. Going back over to the ancient Maya, let's finish off strong. Back in 2003, quite recent, in Mexico, archaeologist Sergio Gomez arrived to work. The beautiful Mayan serpent pyramid, that's where he worked, right? What a gig. Out of nowhere, there was a sinkhole that just appeared overnight on property, but it was super close to the actual pyramid. So Sergio covered it with a tent quickly, obviously not knowing where to begin with this now stressful situation at one of the most historical sites on the planet. Sergio had to go in there and figure out where it led to, right? That's obviously the next question. Sergio had been working there for 30 years prior. He knew the serpent pyramid pretty well at that point, but what he found that day was hiding underneath him that entire time, for 30 years. He got a few coworkers to lower him into the fresh sinkhole, so right off the bat, this guy deserves a raise. Let's do that, let's figure that out first. He was lowered into this secret tunnel, this ancient tunnel. This tunnel was blocked off purposely thousands of years ago, so there's lots of work to be done, but why was it blocked off, right? That's the big question. The tunnel was excavated for about a year afterwards, and it was determined that it was blocked on purpose to stop people from going back and forth. Because all of these pyramids connected to one another. The tunnel connected the Serpent Pyramid to the Temple of the Moon and to the Temple of the Sun. Now, it's one thing to discover secret tunnels and pyramid entrances your entire life, but to fall down another layer of secrets almost 30 years later? I don't know, it's kinda something's afoot here. I have a feeling we'll never know who really built these or why, but I'm on it, I'm figuring it out. Number 10. Lizzie Borden's house. A bed and breakfast located at 230 2nd Street is home to one of America's most haunted and mysterious houses ever. Now, the Lizzie Borden house gets its momentum from the unsolved murder, of course, of Lizzie Borden back in 1892. She's one of the most infamous true crime figures known for killing her father and stepmother horribly. She did it with a hatchet. Just in case you're thinking, how did she do it? A hatchet. There's a twisted rhyme about the incident, but I'm not gonna sing that here. I'm not getting cursed on YouTube, but thanks. If you know it, hum it. It's pretty catchy. 1892, Lizzie's stepmother of 27 years, she was hit 19 times while her father, Andrew, was hit 11 times. Now, although Lizzie Borden was acquitted and found not guilty, the dark history draws in crowds, of course, every night for its nightly tour of the premises. Gotta make a buck off this horrible history, right? Netflix and, you know, real life. The Lizzie Borden room, the infamous room where these horrors took place, is requested for the most paranormal overnighters. Yeah, some 1408 stuff. People staying overnight in haunted houses. Would you ever do this? Number 9. Leap Castle. Leap Castle, Ireland. Built around 1250, this beauty was one of the most lived-in castles in Ireland. It was built originally by the O'Bannon family. The classic happens, father dies, powerful family, no successor to the throne. This turned into a brother versus brother kind of deal. things got shady. A lot of family attacks, nobody could get along, so now we got a castle full of ghosts. A popular sighting is two haunting ghost girls playing in the main hallway. Their apparition has been seen since the 1600s, but the most famous sighting is that of the Red Lady. The Red Lady wears a long red dress. She's tall and lean, and she has one of her hands raised. That's terrifying. Can you imagine a ghost trying to block you at all times, just coming down the hallway? Number 8, the Ram Inn. An ancient old haunted inn. Nope, I could never. Also, this one doubles as a functioning pub located in England. Okay, that one I could probably do. That one I could maybe do. The inn has been owned and operated by many folks since as early as the 1100s. The ancient Ram Inn has been investigated by years of paranormal researchers. Shows like Ghost Adventures, Most Haunted, Ghost, you name it, all of them. People with, they've stood around there and pointed things. Haunted, for sure haunted. That's what they did. They stood there and went. Legend has it that the energy from Stonehenge actually feeds the property's paranormal power. Not to mention the backyard is home to a 5,000-year-old pagan burial ground. Stonehenge feeding power? I mean, that's one way to save on your electricity bill. Got any tips? Sans ghosts, got any tips? Number 7, Kalua Papa. Heading over to the beautiful Hawaii for this one. I know one of our viewers is from Hawaii. Always wanted to go. Thing is, islands in the middle of the ocean scare the shit out of me. And also, haunted villages. Yeah, we don't like both of those combined. This was once referred to as the most cursed place on Earth. The coast of Molokai sounds like a great time, and from Google Earth it certainly looks like a fair weekend getaway, but for over 100 years, this was an isolation coast for patients with leprosy. That of course had to change at some point, and the laws did in 1969. But as of right now, no more than 5 people live on this part of the island due to its cursed history. Fair, that's more than fair, I wouldn't do it. Would you do it? Would you live on a cursed island? I mean, it's beautiful, you get a tan, sure, but you'd also get haunted. Number 6, the Conjuring Farmhouse. We may have a clear photo with the real Bathsheba Sherman, aka a real-life witch from the Conjuring movie. Yeah, this photo is from the Perrin family farmhouse back when it was the old Arnold estate. Now, if you've seen the first Conjuring film, it's based on those events that happened in this estate in real life. This was 1885, and this witch lived next door to the farm. And although we'll never really know it, many believe she's the lady in the middle closest to the camera. Also, the fact that she's standing by herself, I feel like that's for sure a witch. Like the vibe of the group was off, everyone kind of like shuffled away from the witch. This is the real house. It's referred to by the Perrin family as the old Arnold estate. So 2 names gets kind of confusing, but it's the one place. It's located in Harrisville, Rhode Island. Aside from paranormal horrors, the Perrin family also had to deal with financial ones. When the family lived there, a pipe burst randomly and then just flooded their entire business, so they had to sell off more than 85% of their land. Do you guys think the real Bathsheba Sherman is in this photo? The lady on the left there also looks a little witchy, I don't know. But who am I to judge? It's creepy. Number 5. Amityville House. You've more than likely seen this photo, either in the Amityville horror movie, or maybe you've seen it go viral since. The demonic ghost boy photograph. Also great name, really gets to the point. This photo was taken inside the actual Amityville house back in 1976. It was taken with automatic cameras equipped with infrared, and a photographer named Gene Campbell set the whole operation up. Gene was working with paranormal investigators at the time. He was working with Ed and Lorraine Warren. Yeah, the classic. Now we're getting it. Now oh, this may be real. This photo was revealed 3 years after it was taken on the Merv Griffin show. Now, of course, it was a big deal, and many believe this is in fact one ghost of John DeFeo, one of the boys who lived there before that horrible 1974 event. What do you guys think? Elaborate hoax, or perhaps this photo is one solid piece of evidence that maybe, probably the Amityville horror house is indeed haunted? Number 4, the Queen Anne Brick Mansion. Heading over to Georgia for this haunted mansion. When I say mansion, also, I mean like Haunting of Hill House type mansion, not like Will Smith mansion. Know what I mean? No one's playing tennis in the back of this one. In Savannah's Columbia Square, the Queen Anne Brick Mansion was built in 1892 for William and Anne Kaho and their 10 kids. After a few deaths took place in the house, the building was converted into a bed and breakfast. And since 1992, guests have reported hearing footsteps, seeing ghosts, and also sounds of kids playing. I don't want that in a regular bed and breakfast, let alone a haunted one, Just let me sleep. Why am I hearing squeaks, like shoe squeaks outside? Maybe we're in Will Smith's mansion, maybe. Maybe they're playing tennis. Number 3, Bangar Fort. Back in the 16th century, King Madho built the massive Bangar Fort in India. Now the population of this small town was around 1,000, give or take. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful fort. Many considered this a luxury, and rightfully so. It looks like a set piece from Game of Thrones. But legend has it, Princess Ratnavati, who at the time was living in the luxurious fort, she was the talk of the town. Dudes were proposing left, right, and center, trying everything to get her attention. Princes of all over the world would come in and try and take her hand. Now one day when visiting town, a magician named Scindia saw the princess shopping for perfume, so he planned on using the black magic of Vashikaran on the princess. Yeah, he mixed it with the perfume that she was admiring, but it didn't work. The princess smashed the perfume, and as the bottle broke apart, the magician cursed the entire fort and those living inside of it. Only days later, a war erupted around the fort, and there were, of course, tons of casualties. So let's avoid this area forever, shall we? I mean, a magician curse, there's a war 2 days later, it's a fort. Those are hot words, I'm not going in that area. Number 2, the Humble Inn. Sounds very humble, sounds calm. The Busby Stoop chair comes from 1702, and its curse arrived promptly after Englishman Thomas Bubsey had some issues with his father-in-law at the Humble Inn. Yeah, he also didn't handle these issues too well, so now he has to be hanged for it. Can't just kill people, Thomas, alright? Relax. He was hanged right near the Humble Inn, but a chair that was nearby is now said to hold that spirit of one Thomas Busby. If you sit on this chair, you are set to die in a frightful accident. A frightful accident. I don't even know what that means, but it sounds frightful, sounds horrible. Locals say during World War II, airmen from a nearby base came to the pub, and those who sat on this chair never returned. In the 70s, more accidents were also connected, but they still kept the chair around at the Humble Inn for some reason until 1978. At that point, the chair was donated to the Thirsk Museum, where it now sits haunted. So that's great. Imagine just like dealing with a haunted chair. That's a lot of responsibility. Not even a rocking chair either, just a chair. And finally, number 1, the Dark Mirror. The Dark Mirror, is that the Thor sequel nobody liked, or is that something else? The Dark Mirror is part of a fun little collection. The world's only mobile museum of the unexplained. So yeah, could approach in your neighborhood anytime. I don't know, keep an eye out for floating mobile museums. This mirror that travels with it supposedly doesn't shine bright like a diamond. Instead, this dark mirror has a life of its own. The museum obtained it originally from the owner who purchased it at a psychic fair in the Columbus area. That's a pretty solid place to get something like that. It checks out. The same owner said the mirror reflected horrifying visions when they gazed into it. And according to the museum, visitors also claimed to have reported uncomfortable sightings such as their own corpse when gazing into the reflective glass. Yeah, I'm looking in, I'm like, no spoilers. I'm only on season 28 of Life, so I'm gonna gaze away.
Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot, we have the Tibetan Plateau. It is well known that when a person is at altitudes that are higher than 2,400 meters or 8,000 feet, there are negative effects on the body, such as altitude sickness or high altitude pulmonary edema. It's not something that just anyone can do without experiencing side effects, and that is exactly why those who live in the Tibetan Plateau are so incredible. Often referred to as the roof of the world, the Tibetan Plateau sits at an average of 4,500 meters or 14,800 feet. It's covered in glaciers and sees more hail than it does rain or snow because of these heights. Despite all of the challenges that would come with living in an environment like this, nomadic herdsmen are dispersed throughout this region, even in the most inhospitable regions such as the Changtang region, where the altitude is even higher than the average and the temperatures are the lowest out of the entire plateau, leaving little to no vegetation besides grass for livestock. I think one of the reasons why this place, despite its seemingly inhospitable environment, is still inhabited is because of the fact that the earliest human occupation of the plateau is thought to have happened around 30,000 to 40,000 years ago. That's some very deep roots, and it's a clear testament to those that still live there. In our number 9 spot today, we have Centralia. Located in Pennsylvania, this town is referred to as one of the gateways to hell. That is due to the fire that spread in an underground coal mine underneath the town in 1962. Despite the years it's been, the fire still blazes underground, which causes the smoke and poisonous gases to rise up from the ground, not only causing an eerie appearance, but also a very serious health hazard. The temperatures can be so hot in the area that one guy's backyard was measured at 626 degrees Fahrenheit. Sometimes the fire will also burn through supports underground, which in the end turns into a sinkhole. This has caused pets, wildlife, and residents to unsuspectingly get swallowed up into the hole. In 1984, the US government ordered a total evacuation of the town, but there was a handful of residents who refused to leave, and they even went to court over their right to stay in the town for as long as they live. In our number 8 spot today we have Kabwe. Located in Zambia, this place has been described as the world's most toxic town. The toxins in the town are due to the previous century of mining and smelting, which led to generations being exposed to unbelievable amounts of toxins and a mass lead poisoning. The plants closed in 1994, but at that point, the damage had already been done. The population of 220,000 people that still live here are exposed to lead in the dust and soil that is 10 times the US safety limit, but they also stay out of necessity. At this point in time, the World Bank is now conducting a $65 million remediation project, and while that is great news, unfortunately nothing can be done for all of the people who had to deal with this for the last century and a half. In our number 7 spot today we have Wittenoom. This place in Australia is the home of a former blue asbestos mine, which is exactly what makes it one of the most contaminated places in the country. I mean this literally. The roads were paved with asbestos, even after the mine shut down in 1966. While the city was once the home to 20,000 residents, the population dropped significantly after the deaths of 300 former mine workers from mesothelioma. Apparently it was decided that it would be too expensive to clean up the town, so instead the government just declared it unfit to inhabit and took it off the maps. While most people have since left the town, it is said that 3 residents refused to leave and still remain in the almost completely abandoned town. In our number 6 spot today we have the Danakil Depression. The Danakil Depression is a part of the Afar Triangle in Ethiopia, and it is a geological depression that came about as a result of Africa and Asia moving apart. The divergence of 3 tectonic plates caused rifting and volcanic activity. This place is the hottest place on Earth in terms of average year-round temperatures, and it is also one of the lowest places on Earth at 100 meters below sea level. There are active volcanoes in the area, there are salt springs, sulfur springs, and it only gets about 4 to 8 inches of rain every year. What I'm saying is that this place is stunning and has an incredibly rich geological history, but it isn't very hospitable. Despite that, there are people who call this place home. The Afar people have called this area home for many years, and of course that poses the question of how? The biggest industry in the Danakil Depression is salt, and many of the people who live here will mine salt with their hands and then take a 2-day camel journey into the next town to sell it. The people who live here also have to deal with an average temperature of 35 degrees Celsius, but sometimes it gets as hot as 50 degrees Celsius. Somehow they have overcome the odds and the obstacles and managed to thrive in this extreme environment, and it is said that this was made possible over the centuries by their ability to adapt to need less food and water than other humans. Honestly, it's one of the most remarkable things I've ever heard. In our number 5 spot today we have La Oroya. Located in Peru, this town has a population of 30,000 people, despite the metal smelter contamination that has been seen since 1922. The smelter closed in 2009 after the company that ran it declared bankruptcy, but here's how that happened in the first place. The American-owned company ran out of money because they had to fund the environmental cleanup and the anti-pollution measures. Seems like maybe they should have chosen a different path. Seems like it didn't pay off to pollute someone else's air. I guess they forgot that there's consequences for actions. It still remains as one of the most polluted areas in the entire world, and the toxic metals have gone on to infect the water, the soil, and the air. While it is completely unsafe to live there, people still do, and sadly, they suffer the extreme adverse effects of it. In our number 4 spot today we have St. Kilda. St. Kilda is the most remote settlement of the British Isles, and it is so isolated that it is often cut off by storms for weeks and sometimes even months at one time. That is most likely the reason as to why the previous inhabitants had developed a culture, economy, and government that was completely separate and different to their English rulers. Unfortunately, between missionaries and officials coming to the island in an attempt to change their ways of life that were working perfectly fine for them, their sources of income dwindling, births not being able to keep up with the death rate, and the immigration rate combined, as well as the inevitable disease-ridden tourists coming to their island for whatever reason, things for those who once lived on the island changed drastically, and it was decided that they would have to evacuate the island in 1930. Since then, people have tried to resettle the island, but none have remained permanently, likely because of the isolation. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Siwa Oasis. Siwa is an urban oasis between the Trafalgar Depression and the Great Sand Sea in the Western Desert. This oasis is one of Egypt's most isolated settlements, but it is the home to around 33,000 people. The residents have developed a unique and isolated desert culture and language called Siwi, but they are also fluent in the Egyptian dialect of Arabic. The oasis isn't necessarily a super popular tourist destination, as the closest city is Cairo, and the oasis is around a 5-hour bus ride away and is, of course, in the middle of the desert, but those who do take the trip certainly aren't disappointed. If visiting, you can enjoy some locally grown dates and olives, which I can only imagine are incredible. You can swim in Cleopatra's Bath, which is a mineral spring, and you can even stay at the Desert Eco Lodge, which is built from mud and salt. Tourism is actually a really vital source of income for the oasis, so visitors are welcomed. Because of how isolated Siwa is, the culture and traditions of the people who live here really have been preserved, which would make it such an interesting and wonderful place to visit. If I ever get the incredible opportunity of going to Egypt, I think Siwa would be on the top of the list of places to visit. In our number 2 spot today, we have Zabul. This city is located in Iran, and it is an absolute hotspot for dust storms. The summer season is where the worst of it is seen, with what is known as the quote 120-day winds. This is when dust and other matter absolutely bombards the city, which is due to the disappearance of the wetlands as well as the extremely high temperatures seen in the region. These dust storms aren't just inconvenient, they're actually very dangerous for those who live in the area. So much so that every year officials hand out thousands of air pollution masks to help prevent the damage that these storms can cause to the lungs. In 2016, the city was named the most polluted city in the world by the World Health Organization, and a study in 2017 even found that the damage from breathing this air for 30 minutes outweighs the benefits of 30 minutes of cycling, meaning it is exceptionally detrimental. In our number 1 spot today, we have the Galapagos Islands. Okay, this one is my favorite on this entire list because the story is just so crazy. Basically, the Galapagos Islands were pretty inhospitable to life, and you might be thinking, well, things live there now, so how could that be true? These islands emerged in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, sort of as the cap on still active volcanoes. That still active part is definitely key there. The heat from the volcanoes basically sterilized them, and not only this, but they were 600 miles from land. Everything that lives on the island now naturally found its way there. Plants with seeds who flew through the wind, animals that rode in somehow on a current, vegetation that came in on the back of a turtle. It truly is just remarkable. Of course, humans have interfered now and brought some different species, but even so, this story is just so cool.
Starting us off at number 10 is the Lascaux Caves in France. Back in 1940, deep in a cave in southwestern France, a series of stunning Paleolithic cave paintings were discovered. These paintings are believed to be up to 20,000 years old. The paintings that plastered the wall of this ancient cave are made up of vivid images of stag, cattle, bison, cats, and more. The most impressive though is located in the Hall of Bulls, where there are 4 giant large bull paintings, with the largest one measuring up to 17 feet long. This incredible ancient cave was sadly closed off to the public in the 1960s when it was discovered that the cave was home to some dangerous fun guy. And I'm not talking about me, the dangerous fun guy, I'm talking about fungi as in fungus and black mold, both of which are deadly to humans. On top of that, human presence is considered destructive to the work of art, and the country of France would rather us humans not ruin it. But no worries, just last year a replica of the cave was made right next to the original so that tourists around the world could get as close as they could to a real glimpse of these 20,000-year-old cave paintings. But like I said, I'm a bad boy, so that means I'm gonna go to that cave. Not the replica one. And I'm not paying admission either. At our number 9 spot, we have the island of Surtsey in Iceland. 55 years ago, in a volcanic eruption, this island was formed. This gave scientists from around the world to not only discover a new ecosystem, but also the birth of one as well. For that reason alone, unless you are one of the scientists completing research on the island, all other human visitation is strictly restricted. The island was formed in 1963 and is actually one of the smallest islands on Earth because it continues to shrink due to water and wind erosion. Based on studies completed by the Surtsey Research Society, this island could be at sea level by the year 2100. which gives all of us bad boys a hard deadline to complete our cool rule breaking trip. I say we go once right now and then in 2099 just before it gets at sea level. So we can compare pictures because obviously we're all still gonna be alive by then, right? Nothing can stop us. At our number 8 spot we have the Coca-Cola Vault. Back in 1886 the world was introduced to the infamous Coca-Cola soft drink thanks to John Pemberton. From the very beginning, everyone in the world wanted to get their hands on this amazing soft drink recipe. Probably because it used to be made with a popular drug, and I think it's fairly obvious which one it is, Coca-Cola? With tons of people going after the recipe, just like Plankton going after the Krabby Patty secret formula, Pemberton needed help keeping the recipe a secret. In 1919, the recipe was kept under lock and key at a New York City bank, and then in 1925 it was transferred to a bank in Atlanta so it could be a little bit closer to home. Yeah, if I was Pemberton, I think I would have been more nervous having the recipe locked away in another city's bank, but who knows who's working on the inside, right? But finally, in 2011, the Coca-Cola Company decided to open up an exhibit in an Atlanta museum that also showcased the famous vault where the recipe is now kept and hidden under strict security. Very few have access and will ever have access to the inside, but one thing is for certain, I shall study every single Mission Impossible movie and learn the ways of the super spy, and I'll get inside that vault. Hopefully. Should I be putting this on camera? At number 7 we have the Whites Club. Founded in 1613 and located at 37 St. James Street in Piccadilly, London, England, is one of the oldest running boys clubs in Britain, which are quite common within British culture. Only members are allowed in this highly secretive club, and that is political leaders, senior bankers, and heirs to the throne. Oh yeah, and one more thing. No girls allowed! There has only been one woman to ever step foot in the club, and it was of course Her Royal Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. A few members have even left in protest of the incredibly outdated rule, but I think the tradition and over-masculinity of the club is so deeply rooted that it's never gonna change. Members over the years have now shrunk to around 500, and supposedly the bar inside is said to have never closed once over the last 200 years. As much as I would like to put on my most dapper suit and get my way in the club and enjoy a nice cigar and scotch on the rocks, this club I'm afraid is a little too pinkies up for me. And plus also, I enjoy the company of women, especially when I'm surrounded by old British aristocrats. Sorry gentlemen, if you'd like to reach me you can find me down the street at a pub with my pinky and ego lowered. Good day. At number 6 we have Diego Garcia. Located between East Africa, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia, this island is home to one of the most top secret military bases in the world. Maybe they're evil. Maybe it's like that island from The Incredibles and they have one of those super cool separating waterfalls that enter into a supervillain's secret lair? Maybe. Diego Garcia is also said to be home to one of the CIA's floating black sites, which basically means top secret. So needless to say, access to this island is restricted unless you're one of the highest authorities. Once again, we would have to use our super spy skills, but I have a feeling this one is super dangerous and actually not as fun as the secret island in The Incredibles. So maybe let's pass on Diego Garcia and just keep watching spy movies at home. For now. Coming in at our halfway point at number 5 we have North Brother Island. Every single year, millions and millions of tourists flock to the Big Apple. Most tourists try to pack in as much sightseeing as possible and explore every attraction possible. But unfortunately, North Brother Island is off limits. Located in the middle of the East River and not too far away from Rikers Island is North Brother Island. An island that requires prior authorization to visit or else you're floating on over to Rikers. First claimed in 1614, North Brother Island has a history of disease and death. From the 1880s to the 1940s, the island quarantined people with highly contagious illnesses. Every person who died on the island stayed on the island and was also stored in the morgue located there. From 1951 to almost 1963, the island was used as a rehabilitation center for drug addicts. But in 1963, it was then abandoned and became the property of the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation. It is now home to a bird sanctuary and is closed off due to the deterioration of most of the buildings. It is also said that this island is extremely haunted. Ooh, little ghost hunting anyone? At number 4 we have the Bangar Fort. Located between Jaipur and Alwar in Rajasthan is the ruins of a once great kingdom. The Bangar Fort was built by the rule of Amber Kakwaha for his son in 1573. Sadly, the population of this once great kingdom slowly decreased until a famine in 1783 forced all the villagers out of their homes and had to flee the area. There is a local legend that says the reason for the famine and the evacuation of its inhabitants is because of an ancient curse. People in India still to this day believe so heavily in this curse that the Bangar Fort is legally considered haunted. Legally! A government permit is required to enter the mysterious fort before dawn or after sundown. The only living things currently inhabiting the fort are tigers and other local wildlife. But what else lurks in the depths of this ancient fort is still unknown. Time to go get that permit. Starting us off in our top 3 spot at number 3 is North Sentinel Island. Belonging to the archipelago and Andaman Islands located in the Indian Ocean, North Sentinel Island has remained virtually untouched by modern humans. Virtually untouched. Sounds like paradise, right? Nope. It is actually inhabited by one of the last of the world's uncontacted tribes. The indigenous people on the island are known as the Sentinelese. There have been a few attempts to make contact, but they usually end up deadly. In 2006, it was reported that 2 fishermen were killed by the Sentinelese after their boat was carried by the current and washed ashore. There is now a 3-mile restriction zone around the island for the safety of sailors and the Sentinelese people. The Indian government has abandoned all plans to ever get in contact with the indigenous people and would rather just leave them alone. 1, because they don't want to die themselves, and 2, because if they were to carry a modern disease or flu, the Sentinelese people could be wiped out completely. I think I'm with the Indian government on this one. I'm just gonna let you be. At number 2, we have Snake Island. If you don't like snakes, this one is definitely not for you. Located 100 kilometers off the coast of Sao Paulo is the beautiful Snake Island. Sounds like a relaxing, beautiful place for a nice vacation, huh? No. This island has become uninhabited thanks to an invasion of some of the most venomous snakes on the planet. It is said that between 1 and 5 snakes per square meter live on the island. Imagine me right here with 5 deadly snakes all around me. Nope. One of the most famous kinds of snakes is called the golden lancehead viper. This snake can reach up to a half a meter in length, and with its fast-acting venom can dissolve flesh on impact around the site of the bite mark. For reasons like that, the Brazilian government forbids anyone from ever visiting the island unless you are part of the Brazilian Navy or an authorized researcher. Now, I actually love snakes, but that being said, I have never been close to a poisonous one, so maybe we can just chill in Brazil on a beach instead. And finally, coming in at number 1, I hope you all thought of this when we started the video today, we have the ever so secretive, mysterious, scientific, heavily guarded Area 51. The infamous Area 51, located in the middle of the Nevada desert, is said to be home to top secret United States Air Force facilities, but as many more believe it to be home to aliens, an alien craft that have been crashed here on Earth for years. Unless you're in the highest levels of the United States military, you ain't getting anywhere near close to this base. Even the gates are miles away from the actual top secret base, and you probably know what happens if you get too close to those. Lethal force is permitted. Or in other words, you get shot. After the huge failure of the Storm the Area 51, Let's See Them Aliens campaign last year, I think it's safe to say that we don't need to go to this one. I would love to travel to the extraterrestrial highway and take a peek, but I don't need to get any closer than that. And besides, with all the incredible alien news over the past year, it sounds like we need to keep our eyes on the ocean more than Area 51. So, get your swim trunks. That has been our top 10 banned tourist attractions that are illegal to visit. Some of those were super cool, and some of those were just straight up terrifying. The most terrifying one being the Whites Club. Oh, the horror! Bunch of old white men and no women in our presence! Philip, escort her out, please. The woman has cuties. Honestly, my favorite out of the list was definitely the Coca-Cola vault. I once used to be kind of addicted to Coca-Cola, and even though I don't drink it as often anymore, I still want to know what's in the top secret formula. I'm also half expecting there to be a really cheeky guard that even when trying to get close to the vault, says to you, sorry, this recipe is off limits. Is Pepsi okay? No, it's not.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have Zone Rouge. This area, also referred to as the Red Zone, is an area of France that is one of the most restricted on Earth. Located in northeastern France, it is said that this chain of uninhabited areas was completely destroyed after the events of the First World War. The area contains a mass amount of both human and animal remains, along with way too many unexploded weapons that have gone on to contaminate the surrounding water and land. This has led to the French government prohibiting prohibiting any kind of activity in the areas that includes any sort of agriculture or settlement. I mean, I wouldn't particularly want to risk it with an undetonated explosive, so it completely makes sense as to why this area would be restricted. In our number 9 spot today, we have Poveglia Island. This small island that sits between Venice and Lido in northern Italy might be familiar to you because of the eerie tales surrounding it. While believers of the paranormal often refer to it as the most haunted island out there, the real historical stories behind the tales of the hauntings just might back those claims up. The island became a quarantine colony in the 1700s for those suffering from the bubonic plague. That definitely sounds like a bit of a living hell. In the early 20th century, the island instead became an asylum for those in the area who were struggling with their mental health. During this period in the island's history, it has been rumored that many twisted doctors used the island's privacy as a way to practice cruel and inhumane experiments. It is no wonder that after these 2 dark periods in the island's history, it became abandoned. The island sits empty now. I mean, unless you believe in ghosts, then I'm sure the island is full of them. No one, tourists or locals, are allowed to visit without some serious paperwork being involved, so as they say, visit at your own risk. In our number 8 spot today, we have Mezgor. This is a location in Russia that finds its home in the Ural Mountains. This little town is top secret and is completely forbidden to any kind of visitor. This is said to be because the town is apparently home to Russia's nuclear missiles, and the rules are so strict that people aren't even allowed near the town or in its vicinity. There are also rumors that suggest that this town contains Mount Yamantau and that inside this mountain there is the Russian government's extensive bunker, making this just another reason why the town is completely cut off to anyone who isn't a very high-ranking official. In our number 7 spot today, we have Snake Island, one of my favorites. This island is located in Brazil, and it is one of the most dangerous islands in the entire world, and that is because it is absolutely filled to the brim with, you guessed it, snakes. It is thought that Snake Island came to be when the snakes got trapped as a result of the rising sea levels, which disconnected this island from the mainland. The reason people aren't allowed to visit is obviously to protect the humans who want to go, but also to protect the snakes that live here, as some of them aren't seen anywhere else in the world, likely because of the lack of human interference. There's a critically endangered species of snake called the golden lancehead, and on this island there are about 4,000 of them, which is critical to the species being able to continue on. As of now, there are only a few select researchers and the Brazilian Navy who are permitted to go to the island. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Morgan Island. This is a place that is also referred to as Monkey Island, and this is due to the colony of about 4,000 rhesus monkeys who call this place home. The thing is though, the monkeys aren't originally from the South Carolina island. Who would have thought? They were actually relocated here from Puerto Rico. Basically, these monkeys were living in a sort of research center before they moved to this island. But that research center was becoming overpopulated, and some of the monkeys who carried infectious diseases were escaping, which posed quite a health and safety risk to everyone around. This is when South Carolina stepped in randomly and offered this completely uninhabited island as a place for the monkeys to go, and then they could be researched. There are now laws that prohibit anyone from visiting this island for both yours as well as the monkey's safety. Our number 5 spot today, we have Chernobyl exclusion zone. Back in 1986, there was the tragic event of the accidental nuclear meltdown at the Chernobyl nuclear plant. The aftermath of this disaster took many lives, and it also rendered the area unsafe for years to come. While some of the areas surrounding the disaster are relatively safe now, there is still an area called the Chernobyl exclusion zone, which is strictly forbidden because of the radioactive contamination. You would think the threat of a horrible death, or at least some painful side effects, might be enough to keep people out, but that is not the case. Throughout the years, people have continually tried to sneak into this zone to catch a glimpse at what exactly it holds. In our number 4 spot today, we have North Brother Island. This island is located in the United States on the East River in New York, in between the Bronx and Rikers Island. This island used to be the home of Riverside Hospital, and back in the 19th century, this hospital saw it all. The hospital was used as a place to quarantine those who were suffering suffering from diseases like tuberculosis, yellow fever, or smallpox. Definitely already a grim start, but later the hospital found a new purpose, and that was after World War II, where they used it to house veterans. After this, the hospital turned into an addiction treatment facility until it finally closed its doors in the early 1960s. When the hospital shut down, it was simply left to lay abandoned. Now the island remains abandoned by humans and is closed to the public because it has found some new residents. The island now serves as a nesting colony for black-crowned night herons. Just a random tidbit of info, I guess. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Fukushima exclusion zone. Back in 2011, there was the Fukushima nuclear disaster which struck Japan. Because of this horrible incident, residents located within 18 miles of the plant were urged to evacuate, similar to the Chernobyl nuclear disaster that we already talked about. In fact, this meltdown and Chernobyl's are the only 2 events to receive a level 7 event classification on the International Nuclear Event Scale. Because of this extreme radiation contamination, no one is allowed to enter the premises. Of course, I can't see why anyone would want to, but there are people who want to take the risk. This includes a 27-year-old photographer who decided to illegally sneak into the exclusion zone. He explained that it looked like a real-life version of Fallout, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's what it's based on. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Lascaux Cave. This cave is located in France, and it got itself the title of being a UNESCO World Heritage Site after its discovery in 1940 due to the incredible prehistoric paintings that can be seen on the walls. Of course, because of this became a popular tourist destination, and people were jumping at the chance to see these works of art completed by the early humans, but as it turns out, breathing is not good for the art, which poses quite a problem. The carbon monoxide that visitors were expelling was beginning to cause damage to these cave paintings, and of course, once they're gone, there's nothing that we can do to get them back. This led to the site being closed to the public in 1963. Now, the only people allowed in are researchers and preservationists who work to make sure the art stays for as long as possible. In our number 1 spot today, we have Metro 2. During the time where Stalin was in power, it is said that he instructed that an underground secret transport system would be built known as Metro 2. This mysterious underground system is said to connect different administrative institutions, and it's even rumored that it contains apartments and different technical rooms, sort of like a secret escape tunnel for high-level officials. Of course, it's completely blocked off to outsiders or the general public, and while the Moscow Metro administration denies that these tunnels even exist, there was an urban exploration group back in 1994 that claimed to have found the entrance. At this point in time, the existence of only one of the rumored 4 lines has been confirmed, and it is called D6.